Time for some more Gibbons. This is number 1 of the Fantasias for 2 trebles, and once again I'm playing from the Hunter edition, so no bar lines or bar numbers, but I have got rehearsal letters, so assuming I remember, I'll tell you where they are as we go through. I thought we'd look at part 2, and I thought we'd start on a back bow because I think the opening theme has a triple time character to it, and the first minim I think is an upbeat. So I'm going to play it on a back bow and slightly short and slightly light to get 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And the same here. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. And that's letter A, that F that I just finished on, that is my letter A. Bowing wise, back bow to start, back bow after the first crotchet rest, and apart from that, bow it straight through, I think. Shall we play it together from the top? I'll count you 2 minims in, but then we're going to think in our triple rhythm. So 1, 2, and 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Fingering-wise, I don't think there's anything too mysterious or complicated in there. There's a few places where you've got options about whether you use the top string or a 4th finger. I'm not sure that any of them actually matter. It's just a matter of personal preference rather than right or wrong choice. So you do as you wish in those. There's one place though where I think there's a risk of bowing. It's about halfway between the beginning and letter A. The first set of quavers, they start on a bottom D and they come out backwards bowing wise. And in terms of importance, the top minim D I think is much more significant than the crotchet C that follows. But the bowing comes out that the important note's on a back bow, and that little crotchet that I want to be quite weak is on a forward bow. And if we're not careful, we'll poke it, but I think you need to throw it away so that this bit is a new start on a back bow. I don't think it's worth adjusting the bowing, but I do think it's worth just being aware that you want plenty of sound on that and nothing on that one. Should we do it once more from the top? After 2, 1, 2. That crotchet rest is letter B, and we'll stop there just for a second. I don't know whether you spotted, but after letter A, after the crotchet rest, what looks like an upbeat crotchet, I would normally naturally read that as a back bow, but I want this rhythm to come out with all those longer notes on forward bows. Strong, weak. to get at, that first little crotchet needs to come on a forward bow. It needs to be a little one, and you need to play it like an upbeat. But it works out really nicely if we put that on a tiny little forward bow. And it's definitely worth marking it, because my natural instinct when you see what looks like an upbeat crotchet is to put it on a back bow, and then it's going to mess things up for the next few bars. So a little tiny forward bow on that F crotchet. And the same for this one, because then all of this comes out really nicely the right way round. So that's the second crotchet F after the second crotchet rest after letter A. Forward bow. Fingering wise, you can bar the F to the B natural. I would then put this first D on a forefinger, but the next one that's on the way up to the F, I would make that an open string. And our bowing, this is backwards, but this is nice. Works out really, really nicely from there onwards. Tiny bits of fingering just before letter B. At the start of these quavers, I would play the first A in that set of string of quavers. I'd play that with a forefinger. I wouldn't bother hopping across the string. And then I'd put the E, I think, on the C string. Again, instead of hopping back over. And then it's so unsatisfying not to play that T on the downbeat of letter B. But it's not there. It's in the other parts, an octave lower. Should we play from letter A? But we won't bother with the top F. We'll go after the crotchet rest. And I'll give 1 as that crotchet. And 1. Tiny forward bow. And that's letter B. In the dotted crotchet rhythms before it, I think it's nice if they fall away. So the crotchet, the third beat of that triple time, is just thrown away, and the dotted crotchet has lots and lots of body to it. And the next one. And then you think that's going to do the same, and it doesn't. So it's nice to have set that expectation up, I think. This is letter B, and I'm going to go on. Crotchet F there at the end of that phrase, that is letter C. So looking from B, some bowing options here. Several different possibilities that would all be equally plausible. I've elected to start this on a back bow, but it does admittedly bring this perhaps the other way round to what you would like. I think it's worth it because this stuff all comes out really nicely. You could start on a forward bow, couldn't you? I think that would be an equally plausible really sensible reading of it. You've got to make a choice one way or the other. I really don't mind. I think the importance is that the long notes have got plenty of body to them, whichever way round you bow them, and that the upbeats are nice and lifted, again, whichever way round you happen to be bowing. I'm going to start it on a back bow. Shall we play from letter B, and then I'll just talk about a tiny bit of fingering. Letter B starts with a rest. And 1. So tiny fingering thing. This is from the beginning of letter B. I think here you need to be in first position for the C, B natural, C. Then you've got your 4 to play the G with. Here, I would bar with a 1 between the C and the F, and then use a third finger for the G, 4 for the A, and you can come right down with diatonic fingering. The problem is the C to the F, isn't it? That if you play it 2 and 3, you're going to run out of fingers. So if you bar it, then you've got enough to come down with. This is letter B once more to test out that bowing and the fingering as well. And 1. Stop there for a second. We haven't reached letter D yet, but that's a convenient place to stop. After letter C, in fact, first of all, on letter C, I think it's quite important that the F that's on the downbeat at C is played with a third finger, because you're going to need your 2 for the C that follows. And I like it if this starts on a forward bow and leads into that dotted crotchet. Octave, so 2 to 4, move your second finger up, and then you've magically acquired an extra finger with which to play that top A. Did you get that? So starting just after C, octave 2 to 4, bring your second finger up. Now play an open string to give yourself just a fraction of time to get down, but then 2, 4. Should we do that? This is going from letter C, starting from the crotchet after the letter. So starting from there, don't play the top F. And 1. I'm going to go on. And that is letter D, that final open D string minim, that is letter D. Let's go back and pick it up from where we stopped. So it's about halfway between C and D, and it's where this this really hoppy, just slightly awkward theme starts. You have to start that with the first quaver, the upbeat quaver on a back bow. It comes out this way anyway. And you've got to be nippy about this. You've got to go for the top string because you're on your way up there. It's quite a long way. Just practice that. Can you do that string cross tidily without hearing? It's very exciting, but it's not very Gibbons. And then top string if you like, fourth finger if you'd rather, whichever you prefer. Definitely a 4 here. Definitely 1 to 4 here for the octave. In this section, I spend a lot of time asking people when they play consort music to play through notes that have dots after them, to not chop them short and not leave a gap. But I think in here, the feature is that the phrase ends on the dotted crotchet. And then and you have to get out of the way a bit, because as you play your dotted crotchet, your partner is doing their quaver hopping about. And if you play you're just going to get in their way. So I think you need to tail those dotted crotchets tastefully away. Don't leave a huge hole. Or worse even than that, stop the bow on the string. I don't mean that at all. I just mean that I don't think they need to go right through for all they're worth, or do that beautiful viol playing bloom. I think the energy in those notes should be at the beginning and should fade gradually afterwards. Should we try that together? So I'm going from the first quaver at the beginning of that pattern. It's a G, and it's going to be a back bow, and we'll be in half position. 1, 2. It's quite nippy, that, isn't it? There's quite a bit of just slightly awkward bowing, slightly awkward fingering, and it just needs to sound really precise. So I think I would spend a bit of time on that section. If I was practicing it, I might be inclined to break it into tiny little sections and just worry about that. So the shape of your fingers in there, D minor chord effectively, isn't it? Now worry about the next one. And now think about the next one. And then sort yourself out for the next one. Top string if you like. And then the next. So you're just breaking it down into little chunks where you're looking at what is my hand shape for that particular pattern, and then where do I need to be for the next one, rather than seeing the whole line and thinking, oh crikey, this is the bit that I can't play. Just break it down into tiny sections. Let's do it again together from that same place, from the upbeat G quaver. 1 and 2 and. Quaver rest is letter E. Let's look from D, not the minim that's on the beat. We'll go after the crotchet rest if it's after letter D, and we'll start on a back bow. 1 and 2. The strong notes, the long notes in there, come really nicely on forward bows, don't they? Here. Here, and then nothing on that one. Just really go for, it gives it such shape if you can really go for the long notes and give them really good quality sound, and then come away from the ones that are not significant. Partly just for the satisfaction of the musical phrasing in your own part, but also very often you need to get out of the way so that whoever's playing the other part can be really clearly heard when you get to notes that are not significant in your own line. This is letter D once more, same place. 1 and 2. Back bow on the quaver. Back again. And again. And again. So everything after a quaver rest starts on a back bow. When you get the extended phrase, you get the little one that finishes on a top G. But the next one, I think it's aiming for the dotted crotchet C. And 1, 2, and 1, 2. Let's play from D once more together, and we'll go on when we get to E this time. Crotchet rest after letter D, and rest. That top crotchet is letter F. So looking from E, this is another bit that's just a bit nippy, a little bit awkward. Letter E, starting on a back bow, I ended up in half position and I'd used my third finger for the G, so I had to put my little finger on that top C. That's okay, you might prefer 2, 3, whichever, up to you. What you can't do is hop, but you know that. It's quite nice with a 4 on the treble because he's tiny and there's not a lot of space, is there? So the forefinger can be quite useful for that sort of thing. And then I would put this on a 4 and this. And then I've marked a back bow here. I think because of this. Back here, and I think that's where we've just finished. It can lead quite dramatically into that top F. Quite often crotchets at the ends of things are not so important. The journey to get there was more interesting than where we arrived, but I do think in this next section the quavers can sort of follow their train of thought and arrive with great panache at the top, but we'll get to that in a second. Let's do letter E after a quaver rest and 1. Tiny bits of fingering. There's a few octave leaps in there, or leaps where you need to leave fingers down at the bottom. I'll just go through it from E. Chordal fingering. And also, actually, while we think about it, I quite like this to be a bit perky and a bit lifted. But by contrast, that to be much smoother. Few places to bar in there between F natural and B, or between B flat and E flat. Here, make sure the bottom one doesn't come off as you go for that top F. Bar this. I would play that with a 4 and make it quite light, I think. And then this, leading into letter F. Here we go from E once more. Letter E, starting on a back bow after a quaver rest. Where are you in the bow? That's a leading question, and I'm hoping the answer is that you're in the top half. Here we go. And 1. Going on. The biggest risk in this section is running out of bow, because all of your forward bows are dotted crotchets and all of your back bows are quavers. So before very long, you could have travelled quite a long way through the bow and still have an awful lot of that phrase left to play. So you've got to be a little bit careful. I'm doing an awful lot of recovering on some quavers, deliberately not travelling too far on some of the dotted crotchets. There's a real art to that and a real kind of necessity to do it in this section, that you cannot have a standard amount of bow for every dotted crotchet and a standard amount of bow for every quaver, because you're going to tie yourself in all sorts of knots. So one of the things that I would think about is, which of the dotted crotchets are you going to go for playing through and leading on into the next thing, and which of them might you slightly come away from? Which of them are going to be bigger and which of them perhaps don't need quite so much shape? Which are the quavers that you can work your way back on, and which are the quavers that you need to be really careful they don't stick out? So lots and lots of things to think about, but here's just some thinking out loud really. The first one I think is aiming to the top G. So although the F is nice, I think the G is even more. So you could use slightly less bow for that. You could make this quaver really quite telling, I think, as long as the G is then bigger, and then it can fall away, can't it? But then this one, do you see what I mean about not having an equal weight or an equal shape to all of them? And then once you get 3 quavers in between, it's a bit easier to recover, isn't it? Because you've got just a bit longer to do it in. And then we're all right from there onwards, aren't we? So when you've got 3 quavers in between dotted crotchets, do use them just subtly to get yourself back towards the tip. What you absolutely don't want in this section is for the quavers to stick out because you're trying to recover your bow. I'm wildly exaggerating, but it is a potential risk, so just be careful of it. There's an art to saving bow on the long notes, but not letting anybody know that you're saving bow, so it can't sound like you're trying not to move too far. It's got to have a really convincing and really beautiful sound and beautiful shape, but not use the whole of your bow while you're at it. So not too many things to think about in that section. Shall we play it from letter F? We're going to go after the quaver rest. So F starts on the top F. There's a quaver rest after it, and we're going to go from that C. Here we go. Not too quick, with lots of thinking. And rest. love the end of this. The sort of signal that says, ending coming up! And I think it can pull back a bit at the end after all the activity before it. How did you get on with the not using your entire bow and not jumping out with the quavers afterwards? Did you have enough fingers left to get to the top A when it comes? If not, shall we do it again and you get a second chance? This is letter F from after the quaver rest, starting on a C on a back bow. And rest. It's such a good piece, this, it really is. It's got such good technical things and many bits to keep you occupied, but then it's musically really satisfying. Shall we play it through, just your part from the top, just from where you start? I'll count you 2 minutes in. 1, 2. It's quite fun just on its own, isn't it? But shall I play you the top part just for fun? So as I'm playing the top part, that means that I start and I don't need to count you in. So I'll just pick a sensible speed and see you at the end. If that was the practice speed, should we do it for real?